Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines in our weekly recap of what's going on in space. Today we're going to talk about the first week of March 2019. Our opening story and several stories during this week have to do with the SpaceX Crew Dragon. This SpaceX capsule was launched on its first test flight. The flight was carried aloft on a Falcon 9 rocket by SpaceX. Took off from the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. And the launch went perfectly as far as I could tell. And the travel time to the space station is about 27 hours. After the launch occurred, the first stage came back and landed on one of the drone ships. So the entire first phase of the mission went off flawlessly. So congratulations to SpaceX on a good launch. The next day, we had more news about Crew Dragon. The Crew Dragon had reached the space station and had docked with the ISS. This was interesting for a couple different reasons. First, it was the first time the Crew Dragon had been at the space station, but also the cargo version of Dragon rendezvoused and attached to the space station in what's called berthing as opposed to docking. So this was a new technology in terms of how the Dragon attaches to the space station. And all that worked really well, which was another milestone along the way. The Dragon is going to be at the space station for several days before it starts its reentry process to come back home. And the Crew Dragon is capable of carrying 7 passengers once they shift from the testing to crewed flight. NASA got some interesting money, $100 million, which in the government status is a small amount, but the purpose was very exciting. It's for development of a nuclear thermal rocket engine. NASA has a history of nuclear thermal experimentation and demonstrations. Back in the 60s and 70s, it was called the NERVA project. And what's so exciting about this technology is it's far more efficient than chemical fuels. So it would really facilitate making Mars missions practical, especially with people on board, because the higher thrust rocket, the more efficient rocket, would allow shorter voyage times and many other benefits as well. So this is exciting stuff. And their developmental timeline is they hope to have a functional nuclear thermal rocket engine by 2024. So not too far out. So congratulations to NASA on that. Because the Crew Dragon test flight is going so well, we're already starting to see things in the media about when are we going to put people on. And because things are going so smoothly, they're talking about the summertime for the first time that people will be aboard the Crew Dragon. So we might see that over the summer. 2 astronauts are going to be aboard for the first crewed test flight, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. So really everything is going smoothly so far. Keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully things keep going really well. We're getting some really sexy pictures of the Crew Dragon. And when all this was going on, it was a very busy time for the space station crew. There's only 3 people right now on the space station. And the American crewmen and the Canadian crewmen were really involved in the Crew Dragon coming in and docking and all these things. The cosmonaut aboard had a little bit of extra time, so he took some cool pictures of the inbound Dragon coming into the space station that were high-resolution pictures, really, really cool. So here you see the 27,000-pound Crew Dragon coming in for docking at the space station. So exciting stuff, and I'm sure it's all available out there on the internet if you guys want to take a look and see some of these pictures. Despite all this great good publicity about the Crew Dragon, we did get some negative publicity or negative information about the Space Launch System. What the news is NASA's taking a look at the schedule, and it really sounds to me anyway like they're not going to make 2020 anymore, which had been the goal for the first version of the Space Launch System, SLS. It looks like that's going to push out to 2021. And also, the more advanced version of the SLS is also going to be delayed. So it's unfortunate news, but they continue to move toward their first flight, and we'll see when that happens. Crew Dragon now, at the end of this week, the first week of March, is getting ready to leave the space station. So what's going to happen next is it's going to go through reentry, which is generally thought to be the most dangerous portion of this test flight. The shape of the Crew Dragon is not quite the same as the shape of the Cargo Dragon. So there's concerns, despite all the computer simulations, about how this shape is going to do. So it's going to go through hypersonic reentry, then it's going to splash down in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida. So hopefully that will be smooth and everything will work right. And we'll be talking about that in the next edition of Space Headlines. That's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed our show, and we'll see you soon with the second week of March. Take care.